Hello, my name is Tony. Well, here it is. This is the big one. The one I've been working up to. The one that I've avoided thus far. Because despite the inevitability, despite knowing it had to happen one day, I've never felt up to it, equal to the task. In fact, I don't feel up to it now. And I don't think I ever will. And it was in that knowledge I sat down, emptied my glass of able-old 10-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey, poured another, filled my Cool Fire 750 with e-juice, blackcurrant bomb nicotine content 12%, and set to work, because this is serious stuff. Very serious stuff.
Get yourself a course in karate. Tell me the truth.
I know you didn't kill him. I know! Don't! Don't!
Piss holes in the snow.
Goodbye!
In 1970, writer Ted Lewis, who had previously worked as an animator on the Beatles' Yellow Submarine, published his second and most famous novel, Jack's Return Home. The novel was hailed as being the definitive British noir gangster pulp template. The central character, Jack Carter, was a London heavy working for two crime bosses, Gerald and Sid Fletcher. He would appear in two more books, Jack Carter's Law in 1974 and Jack Carter and the Mafia Pigeon in 1977. Both were prequels to the original, but neither matched it in quality or impact. Lewis died in 1982 at the age of 42 from alcohol-related problems. The film rights for Jack's Return Home were bought by producer Michael Klinger, who commissioned screenwriter Mike Hodges to script and, for the first time, direct. Hodges assembled an incredible cast list, headed by Michael Caine in the role of Jack Carter. I don't care what other roles he's played or been given accolades or awarded Oscars for. This is the one that defined his career, his best screen performance ever. He lives, breathes, radiates every fibre of the character and provides an absolute masterclass of barely contained nihilistic ferocity and simmering violence. This is Michael Caine at his absolute best. It's a must-see. The story is thus. Jack Carter is an ice-cold, snake-eyed enforcer working for a London-based criminal organisation headed by Gerald and Sid, two sleazy fat cats living the high life off the back of their criminal activities. Jack is engaged in a clandestine affair with Gerald's mistress Anna, a cameo by Britt Ekland, and they have plans to elope to South America. How realistic this is or how committed to the idea Jack is remains debatable. Jack's brother Frank has died, which means Jack intends to return to the home of his youth, Newcastle, Gateshead specifically, for the funeral. Gerald and Sid are none too happy about this and warn Jack not to upset their local criminal partners. To
think again, Jack.
Jack's laconic response,
I will.
clearly indicating the exact opposite. See, the thing is, Jack's brother died in a drink-driving accident, which is odd because Jack's brother didn't drink, not whiskey anyway. So Jack suspects there's more going on than meets the eye. Once home, he begins to investigate and ruffle the feathers of the local organised crime barons. What transpires is one definitively fabulous, downcast, flint-hard urban thriller of sadistic and violent revenge and retribution. A true modern classic, one of the best British films ever made. Possibly, dare I say it, the best. Which is why analysing it, describing it, representing it is such a daunting task for me. In 1973 I sat in the Market Hall cinema and was held spellbound throughout. I was glued to the screen, grabbed by the throat, held. Get Carter is powerful stuff, to such a degree that I'm going to come clean right now and proclaim it to be my all-time favourite movie. That's how good I think it is. But why should you believe me? Why should you buy it? Let's see, pilgrims. Firstly, I'll cite precision of intent and execution. There is not one wasted frame of film, not one superfluous line of dialogue, not one self-indulgent or pointless instance. It is sheer, unadulterated, neo-realistic cinematic poetry you see before you, in which everything has meaning and relevance to the narrative. It doesn't fuck around, never misses a trick, not for an instant. The absolute purity of it is dazzling. Secondly, the philosophy of the creation. There are no heroes, only villains. No good guys here. Everyone is a nasty piece of work to a greater or lesser extent. Humanity stripped bare. If we identify in any way with Carter, it's not because he has right or morality on his side. It's simply because he has an all-consuming purpose, a single-mindedness, and nothing will deter him. He is an avenging angel carving out a path of death and mayhem in pursuit of justice for a brother he didn't care about and a possible daughter he has hardly ever seen or had any contact with. Doreen, Petra Markham, the possible daughter, may have resulted from an affair with his brother's wife, and is the only person Carter seems to harbour any care or concern for. Ultimately, motivation for his behaviour can only generate from the pointlessness of his own existence, a cruel, hollow life, violent and joyless, devoid of real love and comfort. He sets out to do something and do it he does, whatever the cost, even if it means fulfilling his own death wish in the process. Carter is a man who knows where his actions will lead, yet truly doesn't care. He gives the concept of the anti-hero a whole different dimension. Carter travels home by train, and the journey is soundtracked by Roy Budd's main theme, Carter Takes a Train. It is the composer's finest work, jazzy bass line, instantly haunting keyboard motif, sizzling drum beats. It is truly intoxicating. The cinematography is by Wolfgang Susitsky, who by trade was a documentary photographer with a taste for German expressionism. He frames the action against the beautifully ugly landscapes of acutely degrading dirtiness, grime and industrial pollution. His camera work aptly mirrors the moral decay and dissolution of the characters who pass through these mean locales. The streets are cramped, dingy terraces. Grungy 70s working class chic is prevalent throughout. The carefully captured imagery of pubs, clubs, dowdy aging cabaret artistes, tobacco smoke-stained and beer fume-suffocated dumps. An element of social conscience simmers within a juxtaposition with the residence and lifestyle of the local Mr. Big, Kinnear, the playwright John Osborne. He lives in a secluded and ostentatious country mansion populated by dolly birds and middle-aged poker-playing sleazebags. His competitor Brumby, Brian Mosley, resides in an eye-poppingly tasteless suburban new build. The class divide is thrown into sharp relief. Organised crime pays and brings luxury and wealth. Working for a living obviously doesn't, bringing hopelessness, misery and premature death instead. There are so many legendary moments in this film. Carter using his electric shaver plugged into the light fitting in the room where his brother's corpse lies in an open coffin. Carter kicking a car door shut on the head of a thug sent to intimidate him. Carter walking naked from a house with a double-barreled shotgun, resulting in the old fishwife neighbour dropping her bottle of milk in shock. Carter having phone sex with Anna whilst his landlady is in the same room listening. The landlady's no looker, but he still takes her to bed after drawing attention to her purple underwear. I could go on, but I feel I need to examine the narrative a little more here before I do. However, if you've never seen it and don't want to encounter spoilers, because there's a lot of them, pilgrims, stop right now. Otherwise, here we go. Carter suspects his brother was murdered. He heads to Newcastle Racetrack to pry some information from old acquaintance Albert Swift, Glyn Edwards, who evades him. Instead, he runs into another old face, Eric Pace, Ian Hendry, who was working as a chauffeur for Kinnear, the local criminal boss man. Eric and Jack hate each other, that much is clear, but so is the fact that Eric is scared shitless of our Jack.
Do you know, I had almost forgotten what your eyes look like. They're still the same. Piss holes in the snow.
Jack infiltrates Kinnear's mansion where he's holding a crooked card game. Kinnear is played magnificently by John Osborne as a cultured and reptilian streak of perverse urbane menace. He treats Jack with wary respect but reveals nothing. Before Jack leaves, he encounters drunk glamorous sex kitten Glenda, Geraldine Moffat. You'll see more of her later, much more. Soon after his arrival, Jack is approached by a low-rent lackey called Thorpe, Bernard Hepton, and his 3 renter thugs. Thorpe tries to give him a train ticket back to London, stressing that he is simply a messenger, but not who the sender is. Things don't work out for Thorpe, and when Jack captures and interrogates him about his brother's death, he gives him the name Cliff Brumby. Brumby is a criminally corrupt local businessman with controlling interests in seaside amusement arcades. Confronting Brumby in his suburban eyesore in another scene with accompanying dialogue that has passed indelibly into movie legend.
You're a big man, but you're in bad shape. With me, it's a full-time job. Now behave yourself. Right? Good night, Mrs. Brumby.
Jack realises Thorpe has misled him, as Brumby has no idea who he is. Gerald and Sid have dispatched 2 pet gangsters to bring Jack back to London. Con McCarthy, George Sewell, and Peter the Dutchman, Tony Beckley. Their first attempt fails. It's why Jack emerges from the boarding house where he's been staying, stark naked with a shotgun. They try again when they catch up with Jack as he's trying to get information from his brother's very cagey and elusive mistress Margaret, Dorothy White. Jack legs it and is picked up by Glenda, the sex kitten from Kinnear's gaff, who's driving a white 1967 Sunbeam Alpine Roadster. Glenda, who is working both ends, fraternising with Kinnear and sleeping with Brumby, takes Jack to meet with Brumby on top of a multi-storey car park where he's decided to build a restaurant. Brumby tells Jack that Kinnear is trying to put him out of business and is responsible for Frank's death. He offers Jack $5,000 to kill Kinnear, but he refuses the gig. Now the next part is not only key to understanding why Frank was killed, but also the catalyst for everything else that happens from this point on. Glenda takes Jack to her place and they have sex. While she takes a bath, Jack remains in bed. Noticing a movie projector, he turns it on. It projects a hardcore black and white amateur porn film. This is when we encounter Carter's single deviation from his usual hard-edged emotional state. He sees that the film features Glenda and Margaret, who participate happily whilst Albert Swift has forced penetrative sex with the underage Doreen, Frank's daughter and Jack's niece. Or Frank's niece and Jack's daughter. The parentage of the girl isn't explicitly confirmed, but the tears Jack silently sheds are a strong indicator. He's upset then. Not good news. Jack isn't tearful for long. He soon hardens into a critical mass of ice-cold rage, physically assaulting Glenda in the bath until she tells him that the film was made by Kinnear. It was Eric Pace who trafficked Doreen for the shoot. Jack doesn't take this information well, dragging her from her apartment and locking her in the boot of her car. From here on, it gets darker. Jack drives Glenda's car to a jetty where he catches a ferry across the Tyne and makes his way to a betting shop frequented by Albert Swift. Glenda's still in the boot of the car, by the way. On seeing Carter, Albert tries to escape out back, but can't climb over the high gate. Confronted, terrified, Swift admits that he told Brumby that Doreen was Frank's daughter, and it was Brumby who showed the film to Frank in the hope that he would take Kinnear down, or at least shop him to the police. It was Eric and 2 of Kinnear's goons who set up Frank's death, force-feeding him whiskey and staging a car accident in order to keep him silent. Permanently. So that's the who and the why explained. Jack stabs Swift to death with vicious and unrepentant force and brutality. On the return ferry journey, Jack finds Con, Peter and Eric waiting for him on the jetty. Once the passengers have disembarked and only Jack remains, Eric boasts that he has told Gerald of Jack's affair with Anna. He is going to be taken back to London to face whatever awaits. A gunfight ensues, and in another brilliantly edited scene, Jack calmly and coldly blows Peter away. Con and Eric choose to retreat, but before they leave, push Glenda's car into the river. She's still in the boot. Oops, that's the end of Glenda. Jack regards the sinking vehicle impassively. Jack visits Brumby at his multi-storey restaurant venture. He rages and punches him in the throat until he's just about stopped breathing, then flips him over the edge. He's a big man, alright, and makes a big fucking dent in the car he lands on umpteen levels down. Why does Jack buy morphine and a syringe from a drug dealer? Why does he phone Kinnear and tell him that he will return the porn film to him, providing he gets something reciprocated? I mean, he's already mailed an envelope containing a film reel to the Vice Squad at Scotland Yard. What does Kinnear tell Eric to do following his phone call with Jack? Who is the mystery man Kinnear contacts following his phone call with Jack? The man with the ring embossed with the letter J. What's going to happen? Jack abducts Margaret at gunpoint, takes her to a wooded area at night, orders her to take her clothes off, makes her lie down, puts a gag in her mouth and overdoses her with an injection of drugs. Kinnear's having a wild drink and drug sex party at his place and Jack calls the police, advising them to investigate. They find Margaret's dead body in the grounds, dragging her naked lifeless corpse from a stream. Kinnear and his guests are rousted out and Kinnear taken into custody. Jack confronts Eric at a desolate coastal industrial area where he's been tricked into going by Kinnear. Eric runs, but Jack, wielding his double-barrel shotgun, chases him down. He catches him by some coal tips and colliery machinery, whereby large mechanized buckets on a pulley system carry industrial waste out over the water and spill it into the filthy sea. Eric is exhausted, and Jack proceeds to force-feed him a bottle of whiskey. Once he's had his say, torturing and abusing Eric, Jack, holding the shotgun like an axe, smashes it into Eric's head. Jack walks away laughing. He watches as the bucket carries Eric's corpse out over the water until it is tipped into the sea. Walking along the shoreline, Jack makes to throw the shotgun into the ocean. A sniper in the dunes fires, and Jack takes a bullet to the head, falling dead in the shallow surf, the waves lapping around him. The shooter, who wears a signet ring with the letter J embossed on it, packs up and walks away. The eagle-eyed amongst you will have spotted him as a passenger on the same train Jack travelled on from London to Newcastle at the very beginning of the film. The end. You may think that was a detailed description of the events of the narrative, but it's just scratching the surface of what this film provides. It doesn't begin to explore or highlight the multitude of background details, randomly captured snatches of conversation, passing characters, lines of solid gold hard-boiled dialogue, riveting images, emotional gut punches, and tingle-inducing components of sound and sight crafted into the fabric of this pulp paragon. Every performance by every performer is pitch perfect. I've covered Michael Caine already and touched on John Osborne's terrific work, but Ian Hendry's weaselly and completely obnoxious Eric Pace is equally a revelation. The supporting cast is tremendous, utterly faultless. What helps make Caine's Jack Carter such a fully formed force of convincing sub-zero shock and awe is the reactions and behaviours of the other players. Those who know him are scared witless. Those who don't soon are. If they believe it, then so will you. And I'm not going to fail to mention Mike Hodges' transcendent direction and writing. His screenplay seamlessly adapts the unapologetically vicious and savage substance of Ted Lewis's original novel, pares it down and enhances it for the screen. Hodges has such a passion and commitment to the film, it shines through in the painstaking care and attention he lavishes on every single scene. Both the novel and the movie are the natural inheritors and progressors of the concept of Brit Noir, taking it to a peak that has never since been matched. Hardly anyone I know, and probably most people I don't, are likely to conceive of Get Carter as a feel-good movie. For me, though, it is. On average, I watch it at least once a year, because it makes me feel better. It makes me feel restored, especially after I burn my retinas to tears watching some entirely fucking dreadful tirade of modern Hollywood life-exhausting garbage. It's a wonderful palate cleanser, a reminder of the glorious power of truly great cinema from a time when cinema could be truly great. Modern films are not made for people like me. Get Carter bloody well was, and that's just one of the many reasons I love it. I don't expect anyone else to feel the same. I don't expect anyone else to agree with me. But here's something I do expect. Don't ever confuse this film with the utterly insulting, disgraceful and completely unnecessary, sacrilegious lump of brain-dead shit that was the 2000 Sly Stallone remake. And shame on you, Michael Caine, for being a part of it. You need the money that badly? Go make The Swarm 2. At least that would have preserved some of your dignity.
In a thin glass.
Oh yeah. Before my usual parting shot, a footnote. Child abuse, child pornography isn't new. Sex trafficking didn't start with Jeffrey Epstein. Get Carter punches you in the face with it as far back as 71. When it hits close to home, even a violent, amoral, murderous, psychopathic hoodlum like Jack Carter can't help but be traumatized and repelled by it. It's his zero-tolerance watershed. Would it affect him so if it wasn't his own niece or daughter being victimized? Is it his own guilt sinking teeth into what little conscience he has left? Does he weep for her, himself, or both? Doesn't matter, because the point is clearly made in his confrontation with Brumby just before he sends him on a swan dive to eternity. The victims are always the vulnerable, the underprivileged, the disadvantaged, the socially and culturally impoverished and downtrodden, those deprived of hope who never stood a chance. Easy meat easily picked on and over by the vultures, the exploiters, the rich, the fat cats, the well-to-do perverts, and those predatory creeps in their employ. And it's not right. Never right. Get it? Got it? Good. Well, I'm done. Thanks for your time and attention. By now it should go without saying, but I'll say it all the same. It is appreciated. No music video this time, pilgrims. Just...
Yes, you can.
Oh, God, Jack, God!
Do you want to be dead, Albert? I've come for you, Margaret.
What you